Welcome back, everyone, to AniMonolith's light novel summary series. For that time, I got reincarnated as a slime. Continuing from the last episode, today's focus shifts from Tempest to a quiet, dimly lit room deep inside the Empire. A room belonging to Tatsuya Kondo, the Empire's shadowy director of intelligence, better known as the Darkness of the Imperial. Kondo is no ordinary man. Like Rimuru, he's an otherworlder. Over 70 years ago, he served as a naval lieutenant in Japan. During a suicide mission, he was caught in a massive explosion, only to awaken in another world. In his final moments, he recalled a surreal vision of a peaceful garden and a mysterious man speaking about the Wheel of Fate. When he regained consciousness, his injuries had vanished. That man turned out to be none other than Emperor Rudra, who had saved him. From that day forward, Kondo pledged undying loyalty to Rudra. With his military training and sharp intellect, he climbed the ranks in the Empire, eventually becoming the head of the Imperial Intelligence Agency, working behind the scenes and unseen, even by the Corps commanders. His presence was so secretive that many doubted he existed at all. Today, Kondo's attention is locked on two names, Yuki Kagurazaka and Archmage Gadra. Intel had recently confirmed that Gadra, along with 3 of Yuki's subordinates, had traveled to Tempest under the pretense of investigating the labyrinth. This only reinforced Kondo's growing suspicions. Months earlier, Yuki had arrived in the Empire seeking asylum, bringing with him over 1,000 otherworlders. Shockingly, over 90% of them had awakened unique skills, and more than 100 had joined the Imperial military. The problem? They were all fiercely loyal to Yuki. Officially, Yuki claimed to be a protector of otherworlders, leading the Freedom Association in the West. But Kondo's investigation revealed the truth. Yuki had manipulated the Rosso family, a noble house that had long practiced illegal summoning rituals. These rituals created magically bound soldiers who were cursed to obey the summoner absolutely. Kondo suspected Yuki had used this method to build his private army, right under the Empire's nose. Worse still, some of Yuki's people had already infiltrated the Imperial Guardians, the elite force tasked with protecting the Emperor himself. That crossed a line. Kondo, ever cold and calculating, began considering a quiet execution. But despite his desire to act, he needed more evidence. Gadra added another layer of complexity. Though hailed as a national hero, Gadra's alliance with the Empire was based purely on aligned interests, chiefly his desire to destroy the Western nations. Lately, however, Gadra had strongly opposed attacking Jura Forest, raising red flags. Kondo suspected that any betrayal on Gadra's part would stem from diverging opinions on how best to eliminate the West, not from disloyalty itself. Still, if that alliance crumbled, Gadra would become just as dangerous as Yuki. Kondo didn't underestimate either of them. Yuki's youthful appearance belied his cunning. Gadra may look like a harmless old man, but his true age was rumored to be over 1,000 years. Dealing with either would require utmost precision. And so, Kondo continued gathering intelligence, determined to uncover solid proof. If either of them slipped up, just once, he would strike from the shadows without hesitation. "There won't be a trial," Kondo muttered, alone in his office, voice cold and steady. "Dance for the Empire, your lives are already in my hand." Thus, in the depths of the Imperial capital, the darkness of the Imperial waited, his icy gaze fixed on 2 of the most dangerous men in the world. At the same time, in another room, sitting alone at his desk, is a thin, one-eyed man in his 40s. His name, Calgurio, commander of the Armored Corps, the Empire's most formidable military division. Clutched in his hand are several glittering magic crystals, recently retrieved from the mysterious labyrinth of Tempest. These crystals weren't just rare, they were pure. So pure, in fact, that unlike the usual ones extracted from monsters, they didn't require refining. Just one of these could replace 100 standard magic stones. For Calgurio, who specialized in weapons and tech, this wasn't just a treasure, it was a game changer. The fact that it was Gadra who brought them back. According to gossip from some opportunistic nobles, Gadra had entered the labyrinth with 3 of Yuki's subordinates. Only Gadra returned alive. While others focused on the loss, Calgurio fixated on what Gadra carried back. Not just crystals, but also 3 rare-grade swords. These weren't ordinary weapons. Made of pure magisteel, their quality could rival the finest dwarven craftsmanship. To Calgurio, they were borderline unique grade, destined to evolve with time. Driven by curiosity and greed, he bought all 3 swords for 300 gold coins, sending one to his technical team for analysis. What intrigued him most was the strange hole on the blade. At first glance, it seemed decorative, but his instincts told him otherwise, and he was right. few days later, the tech division's director delivered shocking results. The hole wasn't just for show, it was an energy conduit, designed to absorb magical power and activate spells. In other words, the sword was a disguised magic weapon, capable of catching enemies off guard. A battlefield equalizer, it didn't end there. Alongside the weapons, Gadra had also brought back a mysterious resurrection bracelet, rumored to prevent death within the labyrinth. To Calgurio, that meant one thing. Tempest was using the labyrinth as a military training ground, a safe zone to test weapons and train soldiers without risking casualties. That was all Calgurio needed to hear. Now his obsession with the labyrinth had fully taken hold. Not just because of the weapons and crystals, but because of the sheer strategic advantage it offered. While the other core bickered for power, he vowed to make the labyrinth his, no matter what it took. Gadra, Yuki, the nobles, they were all in his way. A former low-ranking noble, Calgurio had climbed to the top through talent and ambition, not birthright. And now that he stood among generals, he refused to be outmaneuvered. He saw through the nobles' manipulation and Gadra's silent schemes. As far as he was concerned, they were conspiring to hand the dungeon's conquest to the mixed core, not his own armored core. That would not stand. With his greed and pride ignited, Calgurio began plotting a swift assault on Tempest, hoping to strike before Rimuru's preparations were complete. He envisioned himself crushing the Storm Dragon, conquering the labyrinth, and securing a legacy unmatched in Imperial history. To him, that labyrinth was more than a military target. It was the key to supremacy. And so, with the royal conference approaching, Calgurio made up his mind. He would formally propose an invasion of Tempest, gambling everything to bring glory to the armored core, even if it meant war with a demon lord. "That slime and Gadra won't know what hit them," he sneered, lost in ambition. "My hand would awaken the Empire once more." A few days later, the Imperial Conference began. Nearly 200 people pack into the Grand Conference Hall: cabinet ministers, nobles, the elite of the Imperial Guard, and the Empire's top 3 core commanders along with their aides. Above them all, behind a bamboo screen, sits Emperor Rudra, a supreme figure whose presence alone is enough to silence the room. Only a select few have ever seen his face. There's no wasted time on ceremony. The meeting jumps straight into the hot topic: how the Empire should invade the West. Two factions instantly clash. The aggressive faction wants a swift military conquest. The cautious faction suggests using diplomacy to pressure the West into surrendering. Speaking on behalf of the cautious side is Master Gadra, the Empire's old archmage. He warns against a hasty war, especially with the Storm Dragon Veldora now active and allied with a new demon lord, Rimuru. But Calgurio, commander of the Armored Corps, mocks Gadra's view, calling him outdated and cowardly. He claims the Empire's cutting-edge weapons can easily take down any threat, even a demon lord. Gladium, the ferocious commander of the Magic Beast Corps, agrees, arguing that conquering Tempest is more strategic than going through the heavily fortified Dwarven Kingdom. Since the Dwarves were a nation with a long history of military affairs, the Swordmaster Gaian and his skilled warriors were also difficult to deal with. Gladium's words immediately created a heavy, overwhelming atmosphere in the room. This guy was rumored to be of Beastman blood, and possibly the second strongest in the Empire. With 2 out of 3 commanders speaking out in favor of war, Gadra was gradually put in a difficult position. However, he still firmly defended his opinion to the end. However, when Gladium and Calgurio brought up the past to mock Gadra's backwardness, he was completely silent. Accordingly, about 30 years ago, Gadra was the commander of the Magic Corps, playing a quite important role in being one of the 3 greatest legions of the Empire. However, it was disbanded, the essence was also transferred to the Technology Department and other legions. The reason was because magic was based on innate talent. No matter how hard you train, you will not be able to control magic without possessing magical power. Because of that, the number of this legion was quite limited, and then it was considered obsolete and replaced by magical weapons, which were much more popular and easier to use. For Gadra, it was a lingering pain, the end of the magical era. Gadra was pushed aside, treated as a symbolic advisor rather than a real leader. Now, as they insult his past and dismiss his warnings, Gadra only feigns outrage. In truth, he's already surrendered to Rimuru. He's playing his part, stalling for time, hoping to prevent unnecessary bloodshed. What matters to him now is protecting his comrades and honoring his debt to Emperor Rudra. Realizing he can't stop the momentum toward war, Gadra silently shifts to Plan B. Draw the Empire's forces into Tempest's Labyrinth, the dungeon under Rimuru's control. With that resolve, Gadra turns his gaze to Yuki, still sitting in silence, but clearly plotting something of his own. As Gadra remained silent, Kalgurio's confidence only grew. In his mind, relics of the past like Gadra were to be respected, but in practice they had become burdensome. From intelligence reports and statistical estimates, Kalgurio knew that the combined military force of the Western nations barely reached 400,000 troops, most of whom lacked real combat experience. In contrast, his own armored corps alone could mobilize over 1 million highly trained, technologically enhanced soldiers. In both quantity and quality, he was confident they had already won. The armored corps was composed of 3 main divisions: Augmented Legion, 700,000 troops. These soldiers had undergone magical and technological enhancements. Individually, they were at least rank C+, with elite units reaching rank A. They served as the main force, fusing science from another world with magic to create a near-invincible army. Magic Tank Division, 200,000 personnel. Operating 2,000 magic-powered tanks, this division was the backbone of the Empire's destructive capabilities. These tanks, firing kinetic shells at 2,000 m/s, had destructive force rivaling tactical-level magic. Their durability and ability to penetrate magical barriers made them a terrifying asset. Air Assault Division, 100,000 troops. Known as the Empire's secret weapon, this division utilized 400 massive airships, each carrying up to 400 personnel. With no established anti-air warfare tactics in the current era, these airships were expected to dominate the battlefield and initiate devastating aerial assaults. With this overwhelming force, Kalgurio believed nothing. Neither Demon Lord Rimuru nor even the Storm Dragon Veldora could stand in their way. If my corps can't conquer the world, no one can, he thought smugly. Kalgurio turned to Gadra and noticed the old man watching Yuki closely. Then, Yuki unexpectedly spoke up for the first time during the Imperial War Council. He agreed that Gadra was being too cautious about Veldora and boldly claimed the current Imperial army could handle the dragon without issue. Kalgurio, though internally seething, smiled politely in agreement, carefully hiding his suspicion. Yuki went on to explain that Tempest's capital was connected to a massive dungeon system, capable of relocating the entire city underground. He emphasized that the dungeon had 100 levels and was allegedly guarded by none other than Veldora at the bottom floor. He also revealed that his investigation had cost him 3 subordinates, underlining the dungeon's extreme danger. Therefore, he suggested caution and recommended further reconnaissance before launching a full invasion. Conveniently, the nobles who were in Yuki's pocket echoed his concerns. They expressed sympathy for the fallen subordinates and supported Yuki's proposal to let the mixed corps handle the dungeon infiltration. Their support swayed many others in the room, irritating Kalgurio. Unable to stay silent, Kalgurio suddenly rose and made a bold move. He directly appealed to Emperor Rudra, asking for permission to lead the assault himself. It was an audacious act. Speaking directly to the Emperor was taboo, and the room immediately fell into chaos. Other corps commanders followed suit. Gladium offered his Magic Beast Corps, while Yuki pushed for the Mixed Corps to spearhead the investigation. All 3 commanders stood and bowed before the bamboo screen separating them from the Emperor. But before the tension could boil over, a calm, yet commanding voice rang out. "Silence, you fools! You are in the presence of Rudra-sama." It was the voice of the Marshal, the supreme commander of the Imperial Army, the Empire's strongest warrior, and the only one allowed to speak Rudra's name aloud. Her words instantly silenced the chamber, reasserting the authority of the Empire's true power. Thank you for listening. Goodbye and see you again in the next videos of AniMonolith.